Good afternoon. Welcome to St. Peter's in Hove, and welcome to my second episode on my little series on funerals. And today is Easter Friday. A happy Eastertide to you all. Now, direct cremations have increased substantially during the pandemic, but they were already on the increase. The pandemic's just speeded this up. The idea of somebody dying, their body being taken by an undertaker up to a crematorium, and the body cremated without any ceremony whatsoever seems rather novel, but it isn't actually very novel. Back in the day, when there were huge epidemics such as the Black Death, people were buried without any ceremony. They were in fact placed in plague pits. So people would be taken and placed in a massed grave, lime would be put on them, they would be covered over very quickly, and maybe a priest would have been present. But generally speaking, nobody would have gone near the plague pit except those who were tasked with the burial, simply because there was this terrible fear, which still persists, funnily enough, that dead bodies were a cause of infection. Therefore, by handling the dead body of somebody who'd got plague, you yourself could get plague. So the idea of a funeral without ceremony is not altogether new. However, it's new to us, and it may well become something of the norm, given that the types of funeral we've had up to now seem to have been the norm ever since the time of the Spanish flu. Now, how should we feel about this? Well, a lot of people particularly clergy, may think this is absolutely dreadful. Everybody should have a funeral. Everybody should have a funeral with a clergyman present, or if they're not religious, with somebody present, with mourners present, with some sort of ceremony which says farewell to the person who's died and which marks the passing of a life. I would say I sort of sympathise with that view, but at the same time I would say this. A funeral has one primary purpose, first and foremost, and that is the disposal of the body. Everything else is superstructure based on that. Therefore, if the disposal of the body is the main thing you're doing, and a direct cremation disposes of the body, as it undoubtedly does, then if that's what you want to do, the choice is yours. You don't actually have to have the ceremony. Only, I would say, have the ceremony if the ceremony means something to you. But I remember one of my cousins said he had no metaphysical beliefs, therefore he didn't really think that he should have any sort of ceremonial at his funeral at all, and he was opting for a direct cremation. And I have to say, I sort of respect that point of view. If you have no metaphysical beliefs, no religious beliefs, then why not go for a direct cremation? A direct cremation will also be cheaper, which may be important after all. It does seem why, if a funeral means nothing to you, why spend money on it, and why invite people along or expect people to come along to your funeral when you yourself don't really feel the need for a funeral. However, it's all rather complicated because you're not going to be there. And this is the next thing. The funeral is for the survivors. It's for the friends and the relatives. They're the people who really matter because they're going to be present at the funeral. You're not going to be present at your funeral. However, you could make wishes saying you want no ceremony at all. And if that's what people want, we don't stand in the way. I personally think, obviously, that direct cremation is a sign of creeping, or indeed more than creeping, rampant secularization. And that what was formerly always assumed to be a religious ceremony then becomes a secular ceremony or a religious ceremony deprived of meaning, and then becomes no ceremony at all. But at the same time, I do feel that why have a religious ceremony when you're not religious and when the religious language means nothing to you? And why have a ceremony when you don't actually believe in ceremonial? Why not just be honest, say, well, we don't actually, want to have a ceremony, so we won't have a ceremony. The choice is yours. But I personally don't have this feeling that some clergy have, that, oh dear, direct cremations are going to put us out of business. It's another sign of us being pushed aside. Well, yes, it is, but it's a little bit late to be talking in those terms, because the direct cremation has only come about because people don't want the religious funeral. When the religious funeral becomes emptied of meaning, then the obvious thing to do is have the direct cremation. So I feel that having a religious funeral empty of meaning for the people who are participating, which I've been to, and which can be quite a painful occasion to witness, both for the people present and indeed for the priest. I think if that's the case, go for a direct cremation. So I'm not against direct cremations. If people say to me, we've decided on a direct cremation, I'll say, well, if that's what you've decided, yeah, okay, that's fine. Whatever you want. As we've said, the choice is yours. All the very best. Back tomorrow. See you then. Bye from Hove.